Jai Jinendra, and welcome to JSMW Wellness Series. In partnership here with All of Us program. My name is Rahul Jain, Director of Public Relations. Let's begin the program as we always do with a Jain prayer, Navkar Mantra. I invite my beautiful wife, Savita Jain, to recite the prayer for us.
Jai Jinendra. Please close your eyes. Join your hands. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Uvachayanam. Namo Loe Saffasahunam. Eso Panchanamo Karo Sappapava Panasano. Mangalam Savesim Padhamam Havai Mangalam Padhamam Havai Mangalam Padhamam Havai Mangalam. Jai Jinendra.
Thank you, Savita. That was melodious and calming as always. I welcome you all again to our wellness program today on the topic of heart health. It is an important topic. It is one of the health conditions that affects our community and impacts many of us. We have two dynamic and extremely knowledgeable guests today who will share their expertise with us to help us live healthier, longer lives. Before we begin, let me take a quick moment to introduce the All of Us program to you all and JSMW's partnership with that. All of Us is a research program from National Institutes of Health. It is seeking 1 million people across US, and by doing so, it hopes to one day help speed up medical research. The participants share information about their health, habits, and what it's like to where they live. By looking for patterns, researchers may learn more about what affects people's health. JSMW is a proud community partner with All of Us program. Many of our members, including yours truly, is a program participant. In fact, fun fact, I joined the program 2 months after it started in 2018. Without further ado, let me invite JSMW's former Director of Public Relations, Pulkit Gangwal, to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Rahul Bhai. Good morning and Jai Jinendra to everyone. Our chief guest speaker, Dr. Neil K. Shah, is one of the JSMW members and a board certified cardiologist and a partner at Carient Heart and Vascular, a large private practice in Northern Virginia. He leads Carient's nuclear cardiology program and is passionate about guiding parents on how to use food and lifestyle interventions to achieve an optimum quality of life. As a Jain himself, Dr. Shah not only understands the Jain lifestyle in depth, but could enlighten us on how to keep our heart healthy while sticking to Jain principles. Today, Dr. Shah will take us to a journey through the heart, where he will impart how a healthy heart works, how we develop heart diseases, and what strategies can prevent, arrest, and even reverse the most common forms of heart diseases. Ladies and gentlemen, please pour in your questions on the Zoom chat and we will take them all towards the end of the journey. There will be an opportunity to put your questions in verbal form. You just need to raise your hand after the presentation. And with that, let's begin this journey through the heart with our chief guest speaker, Dr. Neil Kesha.
Jay Janendra, good morning, everyone. Great to see so many of you here. After seeing this many people on, I'm really even more excited to give this talk today. So let me share my screen and we'll get started.
We're good. We can see.
We're good. So thank you to the Society Leadership for the invitation. As Pulkit so graciously introduced me, my name is Neil Shah, a cardiologist with Care Heart Vascular. We're private practices with offices throughout Northern Virginia. So today, our goals are as follows. By the end of the talk, you should have a clear understanding of the essentials of what the heart is and how it works. You'll appreciate the major forms of heart disease and their associated treatments. And you'll have a guide on how to make yourself as heart attack proof as possible, and at once prevent, arrest, and reverse all the other forms of chronic heart disease like high blood pressure, diabetes, and cholesterol. So that's a big ask. It's a big lift. And so there's a lot of material to go through. So we're going to move fast, but at any time, if you have any questions, follow the guidance that Pulkit gave you. You can use the chat box, please. Okay. So first, we're going to start with a pre-test. So we're going to do this using Zoom to poll the audience. I want everyone logged on to participate. It should be anonymous, so please don't hesitate, and please answer the first question. So if we can have the first poll question up, please. So we'll give you about 10 seconds to go ahead and answer. So I'll read the question. What is the #1 killer of mankind? We'll give it a little bit longer. I think it takes some time for the upload. Okay, I think we have near unanimity on this response. Okay, so can we end the poll, please? 95% of you said heart disease, and it is indeed heart disease. All right, and by the way, this wasn't the case about 100 years ago. This is really a new phenomenon in the course of human history. All right, second question, please. So how much of your heart attack risk is genetic? So greater than 90%, 50%, 20%, or less than 10%? So kind of all over the place here. We can end the poll, please. So the correct answer is less than 10%. You'll learn about why that's the case. And can we have the last poll question? All right, so which of these foods has the most cholesterol? And no running to your pantry to find out, okay? So #1, extra virgin olive oil, peanut butter, canola oil, avocado, low-fat almond milk, almond butter. Okay, so again, okay, guys, I think there's when this poll was created, there was a mistake. And I think, can people change their answers? Because one of these options was written incorrectly. Okay, so the low-fat almond milk, that is low-fat cow's milk, is what it's meant to say, not almond. So if anybody wants to change their answer, please do. Nobody wants to change. Okay. All right. So can we end the poll? All right. So the answer to this question, if it was written correctly, it's low fat dairy milk. So this is an important point, that cholesterol only comes from animal products. This is a question. By the way, if you got this wrong, don't feel bad, because I've given this lecture to other physicians and other board certified physicians and cardiologists, and many of them also got this wrong. There's this misunderstanding that oil has cholesterol, and an oil can have a ton of saturated fat. It's just pure fat, but it has zero cholesterol. That's an important distinction. So cholesterol only comes from animal products. Right? So dairy, eggs, chicken, turkey, pork, all of that. All right, so let's move on. All right, so is my screen sharing on now?
Yes, it is. We're seeing the title slide.
Okay. Oh, I think I have to resume the share, so give me a moment. Can you see this now?
No, we still see the title slide.
Okay.
Tries to stop sharing and then restarting back up again. Sometimes that refreshes it.
Yeah. Got
Yeah,
it?
see the human body.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's start. So what is the heart? It's a pump. How big is it? It's slightly larger than your fist. It's about this big, if you can see where I'm pointing to. It's about just slightly larger than your fist. It sits in the middle of your chest, here in between the lungs, and with each squeeze, it propels blood to the entire body. It's a sequential pump, meaning that it squeezes and it relaxes, squeezes and relaxes. This is different from a continuous pump like the sump pump in your basement. But even when it's relaxing, it's still pulling blood from the lungs to get ready for the next squeeze. So can the heart ever take a break longer than a few seconds? No, right? On average, how many times a minute does the heart beat? About 70 to 72 times a minute it beats. So that comes to about 100,000 times per day. The heart has 4 chambers, 2 on the right, 2 on the left, the right atrium, the right ventricle on the right, the left atrium, the left ventricle on the left side. The atria are called the top chambers are called the atria, the bottom chambers are called the ventricles. And there's 4 valves inside the heart to keep the blood flowing in one direction. So here you see blood cells. The blood that has already delivered oxygen to the body comes into the heart on the right side. It moves through the valve and then it gets pushed to the lungs. It picks up new oxygen, comes back to the heart on the left side, and then gets pushed out to the body again. This cycle goes on and on 100,000 times per day. So, and just like with any other mechanical unit, the heart can have its share of breakdowns. Some of these breakdowns are due to age and use-related wear and tear. And these are largely unavoidable. Other breakdowns are due to poor food and lifestyle choices. So now you have a basic understanding of the heart structure and how it works. And now let's move on to disease. So one of the best ways to understand the workings of the heart is to think of it like a car engine. So I love this analogy because if you think about the car engine having 3 main components, you see the cylinders, these are the components that make the wheels go around. This is analogous to the muscle and the chambers of the heart squeezing the blood. Secondly, you have a nutritional component, the oil and gas lines. Just like the coronary arteries, the tubes that feed blood and oxygen into the heart muscle. And I'm going to show you pictures of that in a moment. Thirdly, you have an electrical component that this governs the activity of the engine. And you have wiring in the heart very similar to the car engine. So these are the 3 main components of the heart. You understand the basic structure of the heart, and you know that these 3 main components. If you keep these separate in your mind, you understand that these components work together, but this will help you understand all the major diseases of the heart, okay? First, so we're going to start with the muscle and valve. So what can go wrong with the heart? Okay, now down over here on the bottom left side of the picture of the slide here, you see this area of the heart. And can you guys see my mouse where I'm moving my mouse here? Maybe maybe not. But so on the bottom
We
left,
can.
you can.
Yeah.
Excellent. So there's this valve called the aortic valve. Okay, so the heart has one main valve that sits between the heart and the aorta, which is the exit point of the heart, where all the red blood leaves the heart. And this valve is prone to wear and tear, because with every squeeze of the heart, this valve is directly impacted by the strongest forces present inside the heart chambers. So think about the flapper valve in the back of your toilet. If you've ever opened up the back of your toilet and you had to change that flapper valve, you know, that gets worn out by the water flowing through it. You know, it depends on how many times you use it, how many flushes there are, what's your water quality, right? And that toilet valve lasts, what, about 5-10 years? It comes in a pack of 3 at Home Depot. Yeah, so your valve, your flapper valve, lasts about 70 years, okay? And when it gets hard, it does one of two things. Either it doesn't open as well, or it becomes very leaky. And the symptoms from this are shortness of breath, chest pains, and even lightheadedness and fainting. And so I'm going to show you a picture of the heart that is a normal heart. So this is an ultrasound picture of the heart, and you're going to see it move. This over here is the main pumping chamber of the heart. You see how it's squeezing? This is a normal, this is that main pumping chamber of the heart that we saw. It was the left ventricle. This over here is the aortic valve. Okay, this is the aorta over here where my mouse is, and this is the main valve of the heart. You see how it opens nice and everything is swinging open, just like a barn door opening up. You see that? Everybody should be able to appreciate that. Okay, now look at this over here. So now you see over here, this is again the main pumping chamber of the heart. You see how it's squeezing very nicely, but now what is different? Does everybody see this over here? What does that valve look like? That valve is very thick and it looks like it's not moving all that much at all, right? And so this is called aortic stenosis. So this is a problem where the blood is not getting out of the heart. You're going to get chest pains, shortness of breath, and lightheadedness. Okay. So this is age-related degeneration of the valve. Okay, so you can't really do much about this. This is like graying of the hair. You can dye your hair, but it's still gray underneath. And so these are one of the things that you have to accept as part of aging. And we tend to think of aging as an external process where the sun shines, but our insides also age. Okay, so now can you guys hear that sound?
Yes.
Yeah, so this, if your doctor listens with the stethoscope, if your primary doctor, your family doctor listens with the stethoscope and says, hey, you have a murmur, this is the most common heart murmur as you get older, is this aortic stenosis murmur, because the valve is getting harder and harder, and it's getting narrower as time goes on. So it affects about 12% of the people that are older than 75 years of age. But you can see milder forms at an even younger age. Okay, now, so what do you do about it? Up until about 10 to 15 years ago, the only way to replace the heart valve was you open up the chest and you open up the rib cage, you open up the heart, you take out the old valve and you sew in a new one. That's called a surgical aortic valve replacement. Okay, that requires a cardiothoracic surgeon. Now, in the last 10 to 15 years, for the most part, we've gotten the cardiothoracic surgeons and their operation out of the picture. And we use a procedure called a transcatheter valve replacement. So there's no knife involved. We just like somebody gets an angiogram put in, we can put in a new valve. So we go in through the artery in the groin, we go inside the heart, and this picture will show you this cartoon of this here, this valve coming in. You see there's the old valve there. The new valve goes inside where the old valve is sitting. It crushes it against the sides of the aorta, and then you have a new valve. There's no knife involved. There's no opening up your rib cage, and you're up and walking the next day. So this is the predominant way in how we fix this valve. And you can understand why previously you would have older and frail individuals not being able to withstand open heart surgery. Now we can offer them this, and this is the preeminent way now we fix this this condition. Okay, so this is one of the greatest advances in really all of medicine in the last 10 or 15 years. Well, let's move along. So moving along to the electrical system. Okay, the most common disorder of the electrical wiring of the heart is this irregular rhythm called atrial fibrillation. Okay, so in the normal heart rhythm, the electricity starts firing at the top right part of the heart. It moves down and it conducts throughout the heart muscle. In atrial fibrillation, what happens is that your electrical wiring is off, so that the electricity does not start at the top right, it starts all over the top two chambers of the heart. You see, this is the picture on the left. The picture on the right is the normal picture. So this can give a feeling of palpitations and fast heart beating, and also can lead to clots forming inside the heart, which can then exit the heart, go to the brain, and give the person dead brain tissue, which is a stroke. So, many of you may have these Apple Watches and smart devices that can detect irregular heartbeats, and cardiologists love these devices. Why? Well, because this atrial fibrillation is commonly not present all the time. Sometimes it is, but that's what we call chronic or permanent atrial fibrillation. But oftentimes it's paroxysmal atrial fibrillation that somebody has, and that paroxysmal means that it occurs some of the time. It can happen a few times a year. It can happen once a month. And that can be enough to give you a stroke. So if you can find that, if you're having some heart palpitations, which are the symptoms of atrial fibrillation, if you're having lightheadedness, if you're having unusual shortness of breath, it's important that if you have a device like this, you check your EKG and you go in and see your doctor and get a formal evaluation, because even short amounts of atrial fibrillation can give you a stroke. And still, far too often, the way we find out somebody has atrial fibrillation is after they've had the stroke. This is never how we want to find out how somebody's had atrial fibrillation. So what are the risk factors for atrial fibrillation? Why do some people get atrial fibrillation? Well, with advancing age, with every decade of life, there's a greater prevalence of atrial fibrillation. And past the 6th decade of life, there's a tremendous uptick. Okay, obesity is a huge risk factor. So we have a very fat country. We have fat adults and we have fat children. Okay, so there's no wonder that the prevalence of this disease keeps climbing. There's a direct association with how much fat tissue you have underneath your skin and around your organs, what we call visceral fat, and the development of this atrial fibrillation. Next, obstructive sleep apnea. Have you guys heard of this? So you may know people that have obstructive sleep apnea that use the CPAP machine. This is one of the most underdiagnosed conditions in the world, and it's one of the strongest igniting factors for atrial fibrillation. So if you know somebody who snores, who's heavy, or who perhaps doesn't snore, but just wakes up tired and fatigued and sleepy, then please see your doctor and have them screened for this obstructive sleep apnea. Nowadays, we can do it with a home sleep study. So previously you had to go into a laboratory and get tested. And sometimes you need to do that for confirmation, but we began with a home sleep study. Without treatment, if you have sleep apnea that is not controlled, and sleep apnea is when you not just that you snore. Sometimes you don't snore, sometimes it's silent, but there's a partial collapse of your airway at night. There's less oxygen entering into your bloodstream, and there's less oxygen to the two organs that need it most at night, your heart and your brain. It causes a lot of strain on your heart and your brain. Your body thinks it's dying, your oxygen's decreasing. And so it goes into this very excited state. And that's good if you're running away from a bear, but it's not good on a nightly basis. So it's very important to get screened for sleep apnea. Now, how do we treat this atrial fibrillation? Well, once we find it, most folks with atrial fibrillation can lead normal lives if it's treated appropriately and in a timely fashion. And most folks with atrial fibrillation will end up on blood thinners and some heart rate control medication so that they don't have these palpitations. Okay. Now, moving along to the most common heart disease, this is coronary artery disease. This is the #1 killer of mankind. So this is cholesterol clog up in the heart's arteries, right? These are the engine's oil and gas lines. Okay, All right, so there are 3 tubes that come off the aorta. So the heart gives blood to the entire body, but first it feeds itself through these 3 small tubes that come off of the aorta. These 3 small tubes are called the right coronary artery on the right side of the heart. The one on the front is called the left anterior descending, or LAD artery, and the one on the back is called the circumflex artery. If you live a healthy life, these tubes will get stiffer as years go by, just as a function of aging, but you will not get significant plaque clog up inside the arteries. This is not like a condition like the aortic stenosis that we just talked about, to some degree, like the atrial fibrillation, where there's some age-related incidents that can be expected. If you lead a healthy life, you will not get plaque clog up of significance in the arteries. There are populations throughout the world where they don't get any significant plaque buildup. These are the original Okinawans, the Mediterranean islanders, many rural Africans, nearly a third of the Seventh-day Adventist Christians in this country. What about everybody else? Well, you start out healthy, but then by age 20, more than 60% of individuals will have some degree of plaque formation and hardening and wall damage of their aorta and their heart arteries. This process starts in earnest around age 15. And the way we know this is from autopsy studies. So there's, and I'm going to show you this later on in the talk, there's large series of autopsy studies on children that die of car accidents, etc. And when we open up their heart arteries, we're seeing this damage already at that very young age. Okay, so the plaque forms due to this unholy tango of cholesterol inflammation. So you have to have both. It's a tango. So if you have extra cholesterol floating around in your bloodstream and you have inflammation, we're going to talk about where inflammation comes from. This together gives you plaque buildup. Okay, zero cholesterol, zero inflammation, you don't get plaque buildup. Now, as time goes on, you get more and more plaque buildup. Okay, but when would this cause you symptoms? You only get symptoms when there is a blockage of greater than 70%, because your heart is built so that it only needs 30% blood flow, even with vigorous exercise. There's plenty of redundancy built into the heart circulation. Okay, so up until you have a 70% or greater heart blockage, you will not feel any symptoms at all. Okay, what are the symptoms of having a significant blockage more than 70%? Chest discomfort, shortness of breath, jaw pain, arm pain, shoulder pain, sometimes abdominal and belly pain, sometimes just feeling tired with physical activity. These are all signs that you could have a severe heart blockage. Okay, there are many non-cardiac causes of these symptoms, right? So things that have nothing to do with the heart. So could pain in the middle of your chest and your belly, could it be ulcer pain in your stomach? Could it be gas pain? Yes, right? But the person with gas, if you have them walk, the pain generally does not get worse. Sometimes it even gets better. But when there's somebody with a blockage in the heart arteries, and then they walk, they go up a flight of stairs, they get more pain, they rest, it gets better. That's how you know that it's related to the heart. Okay, so the diagnosis has already had that, but then we do objective testing. Okay, so how do we objectively evaluate for this severe narrowing in the heart arteries? Well, everybody here has probably had a resting EKG at some point. Certainly if there's all the adults probably have had it, right? So can a resting EKG tell us much when you're resting and sitting on the table? Well, I just told you a moment ago that you have these smart devices like the Apple Watch that can do EKGs. So they're helpful for the atrial fibrillation, okay? If you have some electrical issue with the heart, but they do not show a heart blockage, because who remembers how much blood flow you need when you exercise? You only need the 30% of your blood flow when you exercise, and really when you're at rest, you only need 10% of the blood flow. So resting EKG will not show you any signs of a blockage. So what you need to do is you have somebody exercise. Okay, so you have somebody exercise, you challenge the heart, because then if somebody has a blockage, the demand for the blood will outstrip the available supply. And then you will see patterns on the EKG that will show us, hey, the heart needs more oxygen. Okay, so this is an exercise treadmill stress test. These are pictures from my office. And so this is a treadmill and this is the EKG. It's as simple as that. We connect these leads to you and we have you walk on a treadmill on incline. Okay. So that's one option. At a higher level of testing, this here picture in the middle, this is a nuclear stress test. So this takes it to a higher level of accuracy. And then on the right side, we have an angiogram. So this is the gold standard for understanding if you have any blockages in the heart arteries. Okay. There are two types of angiograms, one where we can actually go inside the heart, and this is what this is, and we take pictures of the heart arteries, and if there's a significant blockage there, we can also put a stent in and fix it. For a diagnostic purpose alone, we tend not to use this as a first line therapy because it's invasive, so there's a small risk of injury there. There's also another type of angiogram called a CT angiogram. And here there is no significant risk to you. And that's really preferred when we want to use a gold standard test. So now when we fix a blockage, this is, if you look on the slide on the right, if you have a severe blockage, this is what the plaque looks like before treatment. We deploy the stent here, which is nothing but a metal coil. It crushes the plaque against the sides of the artery wall. And this is the stent after the procedure. Okay. This is what it looks like on cross section. So this is the plaque here. This is the stent that you will see, these little dots over here. But what do you see over here on the right side? You see what we call restenosis, meaning that if you have the same unholy tango of cholesterol and inflammation going on in somebody's body and in their blood vessels, right, the plaque continues to grow. So that this is nothing but a stopgap measure. Okay, so whether somebody uses a stent or they use bypass surgery where they have open heart surgery, if the underlying problem of cholesterol and inflammation is not fixed, the plaque will continue to grow. Okay, so this is a severe blockage. Now it is fixed. So now this person should no longer have this chest discomfort anymore that they were having. They should not have the arm pain, the shoulder pain if it was from the heart. Okay, but now one thing we didn't talk about, the most important thing, heart attack, right? So what is a heart attack? And this is a very important part of the talk. So if you weren't paying attention before, please pay attention now. Okay, so when we do the angiogram and somebody is having some symptoms and we find a severe heart blockage, this is what will cause you symptoms. These severe blockages that are greater than 70% almost never cause a heart attack. Okay, does that probably doesn't make sense when we first say it, because then you don't really understand what a heart attack is. What a heart attack is not just having chest pain from a severe heart blockage. What a heart attack is when you have a medium-sized blockage like this right here in the middle of the picture, where you see this sort of volcano type eruption here in the middle. When you have a medium-sized blockage that all of a sudden, just like a pimple popping on your face, this white pimple that you may remember having a long time ago, this pops on your face. This is what happens inside these medium-sized blockages. It pops open and all of a sudden, just like that, you go from 50% blockage to 100% blockage, okay? And that is a heart attack. That's when you have crushing chest discomfort. Not always. Sometimes, particularly women may just feel, again, some tiredness, some shoulder pain, but you have some new symptoms that are fairly dramatic. And you go to the hospital and they say, hey, you need a stent or you need bypass surgery. Okay. This is very important to understand the difference between these two entities, because when you have a stress test, okay, say you have a normal stress test, all the stress test is detecting is when you have more than 70% blockage, right? Because as we said, you only need the 30% of the blood flow for the heart to be happy. So it's not going to show up on a stress test if you have a 40% blockage. It's not going to show up if you have a 50% blockage. If you do an angiogram, yes, then all the plaque shows up there and then you have an assessment. So that's why we use so much of this technology called a CT angiogram, because it's non-invasive. And it gives you a very clear assessment of how much plaque that you have, because it is this plaque, the 40, 50, 60% plaque, that gives you the risk of a heart attack, and it will not show up on a stress test, and it will not cause symptoms, right? If you go back to the fundamentals, right, it's only the more than the 70% that cause the symptoms. So this is why heart attack remains still the #1 killer, because it doesn't show up on stress tests and it doesn't cause symptoms for the most part. But all of the individuals that have these heart attacks have the unholy tango of cholesterol and inflammation going along. One more point, this is a very important point as well. If you have a severe heart blockage, just like this, okay, on the right side, extreme right side of this slide, you don't always have to get a stent put in, okay? In fact, that is not the first therapy that's ever prescribed for any patient, is get a stent put in for severe heart blockage. If you're having a heart attack, absolutely. If you're having acute new symptoms, you have to go to the hospital. You have to go to the ER and get checked out. But if you've already had the test and you know that you have a severe heart blockage, not every person with a severe heart blockage gets a stent put in. Why? This is an important point. Now I'm going to use a different analogy. I'm going to use the analogy of a tree. Okay, imagine a tree that's been around for 50 years. You have these giant trunks coming from out of the tree, okay? I take a chainsaw and I sever one of the trunks from the tree. Everything distal to that trunk is now withered away. It's not attached to the tree. What happens over time? The tree wants to maintain the same amount of groundwater going up to the leaves of the tree, right? So what happens over time? The other trunks that remain attached to the tree will grow new roots and rootlets, right? They will grow new roots and rootlets to wherever that severed trunk was drawing up its groundwater, so that over time, if the soil is healthy, a lot of those roots and rootlets will grow, and over time, the same amount of water going up to the leaves of the tree will be restored. Okay, so just like that is the heart circulation. It's alive. Okay, so that if you have a blockage like this, the other arteries in the heart, so if this artery has a blockage, the other artery from over here, if you see my arrow, will grow new roots and rootlets. We don't call them roots and rootlets, we call them collateral blood vessels. They will grow and they will supply new blood to the heart arteries. So not every heart blockage that's severe needs a stent. And this is a very important point to understand. Okay, moving along. So when we say not everyone needs a stent, correct. But if you have a severe heart blockage, regardless of whether you get a stent or not, you're going to be on some basic medications, medications for blood pressure, medications for cholesterol, for blood sugar. And folks are going to encourage regular exercise and stress reduction and healthy diet. And this is what we've been doing for the last several decades. But the problem in this country and in many parts of the wider world is that we just stop right here. And what happens is if we just treat the ultimate manifestations of this extra cholesterol in the body, the extra inflammation in the body, it's almost like we're playing a game of whack-a-mole. In that, you know, you have a heart attack one time, you have a stroke another time, and over time, people become very, very sick. You don't get to the underlying cause of why is this happening. Remember I said in the beginning that this is not a natural phenomenon where you get plaque buildup in the arteries of the body. It is only when you have these cholesterol and inflammation in excess. So if you do all of the above, and if you do all of the above and you eat a healthy diet, you will begin to reverse the plaque as time goes on. So this slide,
Dr. Shah,
yes.
we have few questions on the chat, so maybe we can finish this slide and take questions after that.
Yes, we can. We'll definitely have to do a second time around. I'm happy to make so. There's a lot more to cover, but okay, yes. So this slide shows you the leading causes of death. You know, this, as we mentioned, heart and circulatory disorders, cancers, respiratory disorders. This is typically what you'll see on magazine covers and on the news. I don't really like this slide. The reason being because it's not very helpful. It doesn't show you the actual causes of death. Right. So fine. If people say, well, you have to die of something, right? You're going to die of something. You should be dying of old age, right? You can't do anything about it if you get hit by a car or a train, but otherwise you should be dying of old age, not of heart disease. And so what causes the actual disease is these key factors: your relationship with your food, tobacco, ethanol use, physical activity, mental stress. I'm going to just jump through. I know you said just you have a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to jump through this real quick because there's some important. This is a tremendous economic. I still have some time, right? We have 2 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So some people would say, you know, should we actually, this is where we are now, should we go backwards? No, we don't need to go backwards in evolution. We just need to take good care of our bodies. There are plenty of people in the world that live well into their 9th decades of life, and they live very well. They eat mainly a plant-based whole foods diet, and they exercise, they keep the love in their life, and they live very long lives. This is where your risk of heart attack comes about, your abnormal cholesterol, tobacco smoking, hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, and abdominal obesity. This can all be prevented by eating a healthy diet and keeping your life in good shape. Very important to that is movement, meditation. We advocate 200 minutes per week of exercise. Meditation comes in many forms, and encourage you to kind of look into many online apps as well that you can use if you don't have meditation as part of your exercise. This is, I just need a minute. We're getting to the crux of the talk. What is a healthy plant-based diet? Vegetables, greens, fruits, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, minimal processing, and minimal added oils. You see dairy is not on here. So important slide, I am Jane, I'm a vegetarian. Why the heck do so many of us get coronary artery disease? Are we not eating healthy? Well, yeah, if you're getting coronary artery disease, you're not eating healthy. This is a study of about 140,000 individuals done. It's called the Nurses, from data from the Nurses Health Study done in Boston. Followed people for many years. And if you just look on the right side of the screen, you will see this purple line on top. This is reflects. This is the type of food here, and this on the y-axis, this is your risk of having heart disease. The top line is an unhealthy plant-based diet. The red line is a non-vegetarian diet. So people that eat unhealthy plant-based foods have a higher incidence of heart disease than people that eat animal-based foods, vegetarian, non-veg food. Very important. This goes on, and we're running out of time. But for every single risk factor, for cholesterol, for diabetes, there's very large scale studies showing that if you eat an unhealthy plant-based diet, then it is worse for you than eating a non-veg diet. There's many other benefits of eating a whole foods plant-based diet that excludes anything that comes from something that poops or has a face. Okay, so no dairy, chicken, turkey, pork, any of that. There's lots of reasons for that. And we're running out of time. There's wonderful literature. I'm going to talk about genetics and all of that, but I'm going to skip that for now. There's absolutely a mortality benefit. So if you just take 3% of your protein, and if somebody that's eats animal-based protein, including eggs and dairy, if you replace that, just 3% of that with plant-based protein, there's a substantial reduction in mortality. This hazard risk, so you have a 34% reduction in mortality if you're eating processed meat and you replace it with plant-based protein. It goes on for eggs, and 19% for eggs. And the data goes on and on. Just kind of skip this. This is a slide showing you the autopsy studies on how kids develop heart disease at a very young age. Dr. Dean Ornish has proven that people with severe heart blockages can reverse their heart disease with appropriate vegetarian plant-based diet that does not involve dairy or eggs. And he has shown this again and again. He's even shown reversal of prostate cancer. His program of reversing heart disease has been approved by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So what about dairy? Just one more minute, please. Dairy. Okay, so every time all the science shows over the last 30 years, every time you replace dairy with plant-based foods, your risk of heart disease goes down. When you have more dairy in your diet, your risk of cancers goes up, your risk of prostate cancer, your risk of ovarian cancer goes up. You need to cut out the dairy. Do we need calcium for strong bones? Yes, you need calcium for strong bones, but you don't need milk for strong bones. This is also from the Nurses Health Study. This is they had 120,000 females they studied here. Again, a very important point if you weren't paying attention before. If you have more dairy, You actually, if you look around the world, the populations have the highest rates of dairy consumption will have the highest rates of osteoporosis. Can I say that again? The highest rates of dairy, the highest rates of osteoporosis. So that doesn't make sense, right? You see all these commercials, oh, milk, it's good for bones. You need calcium for bones, not dairy. So in fact, the patient, you can get all the calcium you need from plants. Okay, and that's associated with the least risk of osteoporosis. And then also, just as a final point on the dairy issue, I just want you to understand, as a Jain, nobody is Jain in name only, right? We are Jain by our thoughts and our actions. And I just want you to understand, I work, our practice is all throughout Northern Virginia. I work out in Fauquier County in Virginia. And so I've, for the past 7 years, I've gotten to learn more about farm work and most of my patients are farmers than I ever thought I would. And just so you know, there's a tremendous amount of harm that comes from these dairy farms. If you've ever understood how much a cow, when the baby is stripped from its mother after it's born, how much it cries. The mother cow will cry all night. I have just a picture of it. I just want to show you. They will take the baby away because they have to drain the milk from the mother. They take the baby away. And by the way, what happens to the boy cows, right? They're all slaughtered, right? They keep the female cows for milk. So this is a brutal industry, the way they treat the mother and the calf cows. Okay, so if starting a healthy diet, you need to eliminate dairy, you need to eliminate eggs, all animal-based products. You want to eat a plant-based diet. The one thing that you don't get from just a plant-based diet alone is vitamin B12. So if you take a multivitamin with vitamin D, this is very important. And that's pretty much it. There's lots of healthy lunches, dinners, and that you can have that are entirely plant-based. I have some, maybe you guys are getting hungry already. I am when I look at these pictures. Even these desserts, this gajar halwa is entirely plant-based. So it is possible, you just have to be creative in the kitchen. And here's this here. So just this last final point, most of what medicine is, unfortunately, most of what adult medicine is, maybe not pediatrics, but most of what adult medicine is the sink is on, okay? And nobody is turning off the faucet. We're just mopping up the floor. And we have billion-dollar mops in this world. They make doctors very rich and they make hospitals very big in this country. But we don't want to be rich like this because people are chronically ill. Okay, so let's stop mopping the floor and we just turn off the faucet and we do much better. So just as final notes, this is from Dr. Dean Ornish, who was one of the leaders in the movement to be healthier. It's just a few key points: eat well, stress less, move more, love more. These are the 4 key points of a healthy life. There's some wonderful websites. I mean, they're going to share the slides with you at the end. So there's some wonderful websites that you can look at. And there's my my practice information if you ever need to look at it. So thank you for letting me complete. I think these are important points. So please, we'll take questions if we have time.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. This was very interesting, very, very engaging. You kept me attentive all throughout your presentation. Let's take maybe 5 to 6 questions in interest of time, and then we'll continue with the rest of the program. We will take your other questions, which are posted here, which are not related to your direct health, but general questions, and we'll try to answer them
could you
later on.
stop sharing your screen, please?
Oh, yes. There we go.
All right. So starting with question 1 posted on chat by our member Rupa Mehta. Rupa ji asked, which oils are recommended for cooking in terms of heart health?
Yeah. So there's been entire cookbooks written, and I'm happy to give you the references on 0 oil cooking. So there is no oil that's healthy. Okay, you don't need oil for cooking. People say you need oil for taste, right? You don't need. If I give everybody a spoon of oil, are you going to drink it? No, you don't need oil for taste. If and you say, well, I need. It's only when you cook it, then the taste comes out. No, the taste comes from the masalas and all the spices. You don't need oil for cooking. So if you really want the best heart health, you use minimal or 0 oil cooking. So asking which oil is better is sort of saying diesel or not diesel, which one should I drink? However, I would say you want to look at the smoke point of the oil. So some oils have a very low smoke point, and so if you have, your fire is below is much higher than that smoke point, you're going to get a lot of oxidation. So use a high smoke point oil, like say if you use avocado oil, which is very high, I think about 500 degrees. But so that's something to look at. So olives are healthy, olive oil is not healthy. Walnuts are healthy, walnut oil is not healthy, because you remove all the healthy ingredients there.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining that. Next question is from our treasurer, joint treasurer. What is PSVT? Is that different from atrial fibrillation?
Yeah, so PSVT is paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. It's a different type of abnormal heart rhythm. It's not directly related to age or even sleep apnea. That's a condition that we can see even in children. So some people will have that, and there's more genetics behind.
Okay. Third question from our member Sam T. Can plaque not be removed from arteries instead of being pushed by stent?
It's very hard and it's very stuck to the walls of the artery. So when somebody has an acute heart attack, if you remember that slide where the pimple pops, it's very soft, it's pus. So there are times where we suck that plaque out because it's just pus, but otherwise it's hard. It's hard. It's sort of like the pipe in your sink that has that very hard white stuff right against the pipe. You have to replace the whole pipe. You can't just shave that off, otherwise you damage the pipe.
Okay, we will take a couple more questions. One question here is, per Ayurveda, ghee is good for body. Is that correct?
So ghee is full of saturated fat, and no, there's no science that shows that it is helpful in any way. And just on a broader point, everybody can say, well, if I have one member of the family and say, well, I had my mother lived to 90 and she had 5 tablespoons of ghee every day, right? So in science, we don't just go by these one-off things. We do science, we do randomized studies, and we look at what's best for most people, and that's what the science shows.
Great. And one question and this is the last question, and I'll talk about the remaining question right after that.
Yeah.
Is from Shweta ji, and she's asking, like many pediatrician, including for my own son, the pediatrician recommends milk in the morning, milk in the night. So what can we provide as a substitute for milk?
So there's plenty of plant-based milks out there nowadays. This is not 1990. There's plenty of plant-based milks. Remember, you don't need milk for strong bones. You don't need meat for muscles. Okay. Again, the milk is incredibly inflammatory. Just let me tell you this: the milk has the same saturated fat as 4 strips of bacon. So if you're drinking milk, just think of that as liquid meat. Okay. So just for pure health reasons alone, it has the same saturated fat as 4 strips of bacon. And again, there's an ethical reason. So if you call yourself a Jain and you can see that cow suffering, it's tough to reconcile that.
Great explanation. All right. So for the remaining questions, well, I'll put all this, how I used to respond to my mom when I was eating food in India and she was cooking. I would say in Hindi, Mom, पेट भर गया पर मन नहीं भरा, which means my stomach is full, but I want more. And yes, we want more, Dr. Shah. Thank you for offering to come again. And we will have another session with you. We won't let you go so soon. This was very engaging, and a lot of useful information came. Usually when I'm engaged, I take notes, and I've taken like not only more than 2 pages of notes. So this was really good. Thank you for coming today and sharing. My couple of key takeaways actually was the dairy one. Consider milk as a liquid meat. It has struck me. So as a member, as a Jain, well, I'm definitely promising to reduce my milk consumption. I'm going to reduce, at least have 1 dairy-free day per week. No milk, no ghee, no cheese, no product at all. I promise that for at least next 3 months, and I'm sure I'm going to increase that. So thank you for inspiring
That's a great point. Can I just add one? When we make these recommendations, it doesn't have to be all or none. As I said, I live out in farm country, and I have a cattle farmer and his husband and wife who has several generations. They just make meat for a living. But they're both vegetarian now. They don't even have dairy. But it doesn't have to be that extreme. So some people say 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Every incremental change that you make is better. So there's so many shades of gray. It doesn't have to be just all or none. But exactly as you said, if you can go 3 days a week, 4 days a week, if you can replace your morning chai with the different milk, it's better.
Great suggestions. So yeah, I'll start gradually, and I'll ask our members as well to follow Dr. Shah's suggestion here. So as we can see, lots of questions pouring in, lots of comments pouring in. So that means we are not done. That means we are ready for part 2 of the presentation. I will note down all the questions. Your questions are not, we are not losing your questions. And whenever we have that next presentation with Dr. Shah, your questions will be on the priority, and we will start with your questions. So that's the message for my member. So once again, thanks.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Can I make a suggestion or recommendation? If
Please.
Dr. Neil is okay, at least take this set of questions, share it with him. He can provide answers, and we can circulate it with our members in an email. That way, we don't lose it. I think it's okay. We can gather these questions and share with him.
Absolutely, I'll do that. Thank you, Vishal bhai.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
All right. So once again, thanks, Dr. Shah, for making a real complicated topic and very simple, and putting it in layman's language. So I understood it very well. I have a good action item that you have given me, that you have inspired me to take. So thanks today for coming. With that, I think we are ready for the second part of today's presentation, and I'll hand it over to my partner, Rahul Bhai, to take over.
Thank you, Phuket. Thank you, Dr. Shah. We've known that jalebis and samosas and deep fried vegetarian food wasn't doing us any favor, but this is the first time someone has put a call to action for vegetarians by saying vegetarian unhealthy plant-based diet is worse than non-vegetarian diet. How much more direct can one be? And Dr. Shah, your passion shows you want us to live healthier lives, and we cannot be more appreciative of your efforts, not just through this presentation, but everything that you do across the community. So thank you very much again. With that, I would like to now welcome our next guest. I'm super excited, Dr. Ruben Basker. Dr. Basker is a health science policy analyst with National Institutes of Health. Dr. Basker works with All of Us research program with the engagement and outreach team. He's passionate about improving human health and excited to be working with a team that helps maintain the essential relationship between program participants and the community. Ruben also has worked on health policy issues at Concert Genetics, a healthcare technology company dedicated to simplifying genetic test selection. Dr. Basker, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you for having me. But really, thank you. Thank all of JSMW. And one joke at the top here. Normally, when anyone ever says Dr. Basker, I always start looking around for my dad. So I think Ruben is just fine. But really, tremendously excited to be here. So thank you, and thank you for welcoming me.
Awesome. In talking with you, I learned a few fun facts about you. You live very close to our Jain temple. You expressed desire to join us in one of our celebrations as soon as COVID opens up. So we definitely would like to welcome you there. I know you're passionate about helping people live longer, healthier lives. That's super impressive. Tell us about yourself. Share your journey and how you are here with the All of Us program.
Yes, so interesting things about journeys. It's always good to start at the beginning. And for me, it really is a personal connection that I have to biomedical research. And that's because I have a family connection. My brother is diagnosed with a condition called Crohn's disease, and this is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease. And it normally presents in a number of patients very early in life, so around, say, a teenager or even younger. And so this is a condition that causes intense intestinal pain. It causes weight loss, and it is really a chronic condition, and is something that not only drastically impacted my brother's life, but also the family's life as well, because for many years in the early 90s, it was completely unknown exactly what was wrong. I mean, it was clear that he was losing weight. It was clear that he was in pain, but it was unknown as to what the cause was. So for a number of years, many physicians were unsure of exactly what was going on. And not only did this lead to a poor quality of life for my brother for many years, but also poor quality of care, because there was essentially a treat and see approach. There would be recommendations for maybe a change in diet, maybe a change in medication, but it was really unclear what was causing this specific condition. And so essentially it was a try one thing, see the effect, try something else. And for me growing up, I mean, my brother was a teenager at the time, and I was a little younger. And it seemed as though many physicians that were seeing him really, there were few tools in their toolbox. I'm kind of thinking back to Dr. Shaw's diagram of the leaky faucet. Essentially, in my estimation as a child, it was doctors kind of looking around and scratching their heads and not really knowing how to turn off the faucet, what was really causing all of this water to be spilled on the floor. And so for that reason, it really created an interest in me to really figure out what are the underpinnings of disease, what are the ways to really provide tools and treatments for people for all conditions that are difficult to treat. And so for that reason, I studied biology in school. And after completing some my undergraduate work in Washington University in St. Louis, I moved on to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee to conduct a basic research in kind of the underpinnings of disease, so clinical and translational research, to really, with the end goal of providing doctors a better understanding of diseases, of conditions, and also ultimately providing better treatments and better care. And so maybe early on in my graduate career, as much as I was really interested in kind of basic benchtop science, one of the things that I really missed was one of the things that connected me to biomedical research in the first place, which was people. It was being able to see the work that I was doing actually translate into differences in care, improvements in health, things like that. Most of my time in graduate school was spent behind a bench with petri dishes and test tubes and pipettes and things like that. So it was early on, I felt very cut off from what I had gotten into research to really help. And so somewhat during the middle of my graduate school career, I became interested in science policy and this idea of how to use policy to actually influence how science is done, how funding is connected to science, and how it actually translates into improvements in care. And that led me to being interested in different ways to be connected to science policy, and ultimately applying to the American Association for the Advancement of Science Technology Fellowship. It's kind of the AAAS fellowship. It's kind of a long string of acronyms. One of the things you find out when you start working in government is there's no shortage of acronyms. But for the AAAS program was a fellowship that led me to move from Tennessee, which is where I spent 5.5 years finishing my graduate studies, to move to DC and close to the new Jane Temple that it looks fantastic. I looked through the three-dimensional tour online, and it really looks incredible. So whenever it's complete, whenever the pandemic is also in agreement, I very much look forward to seeing it. And so one of the elements of the AAAS program is that not only is that the AAAS provides fellowships for scientists who would like to become interested in policy, would like to have a career in policy. It also is the organization that publishes Science, which is the a well-known journal publication that I'm sure Dr. Shaw is very familiar with. And so in the AAAS fellowship, how it works is interested scientists will actually review different placements within the federal government. And one of the placements that most interested me was a placement with the All of Us Research Program, which you described at the very top of the call, which is a longitudinal health study that's looking to enroll 1 million or more people for 10 years or more. And I really appreciate Dr. Shaw pointing out a couple of other great health studies in his presentation as well, one being the nurses study, which began around the 1970s, has over hundreds of thousands of participants involved in that as well. The All of Us Research Program is very similar in the sense that it asks, say, surveys about health, but also it has it allows participants the option of contributing biospecimens in the form of blood and urine. It also gives participants the option of connecting their electronic health records to this data repository that researchers are able to review. And it also incorporates types of data that maybe were not available when studies like the nurses study was created. So wearables, for instance, is a data type that's also an option for participants to actually donate. And the concept behind the program is that it creates this national data repository of research that is made available to researchers who then are hopefully able to review it and use this, look at large scale amounts of data to accelerate health research and medical breakthroughs to enable individualized prevention, treatment, and care for all of us. And so it's something that I started working on in 2018, which Rahul, you mentioned that's when the program started. So not only 2018 kind of is a landmark year for me, because not only was it the year that I joined the program, but it's also the year that I became a vegetarian. So it's a banner year in many cases in my life. And so one of the things to understand about the program is that the All of Us Research Program is enabling research, but it's not conducting it. It provides access to biomedical data for many researchers to study for a host of different things, not only cardiovascular disease, but also lung cancer, to health disparities, to really any conditions that researchers are interested in. So it provides this data to researchers, and it's really up to the researchers to figure out how it might be used to improve human health. And in looking through the programs, it has one of its core values is transparency. So if you're interested in the types of studies that are being conducted in the All of Us Research Program, there's a website that is, if you type in researchallofus.org, it's actually the website that allows you to look through some of the some detail about the participants that are involved in this study, as well as some of the projects that are being conducted by researchers who are using the data. And there's a research projects directory tool. And if you review that tool, there's a search box that allows you to look through all of the different studies that are currently being conducted with the All of Us Research Program data. And yesterday, actually, I looked up inflammatory bowel disease, and I was able to find 4 separate studies, all focused around inflammatory bowel disease. There's a group out of Mount Sinai, there's a group out of Mass General Brigham, a group out of University of California in San Diego, and also one in University in California, San Francisco. And I was very, very pleased to see that one for each of the studies that are in this project directory, there's a description of what that study is. So it's one of the requirements for creating these types of studies for researchers is to provide a publicly accessible description of what is actually being studied using this data. And in this description, the research team is looking at all this research program data to identify risk factors, both clinical and genetic, for inflammatory bowel disease, as well as predictors of treatment response. And the reason why I felt very pleased to see that was because it all kind of connects back to why I started on this long journey in the first place, which was really to help people like my brother to provide improvements for care, so that this idea of a treat and see is something that happens in the past, that we can start moving forward towards this concept of precision medicine, the right treatment for the right patient at the right time.
What a great story, and of course your passion reflects because it's so near and dear to your heart. When we think of scientists, right? Einstein comes to mind, ruffled hair, and here you are, a scientist with a suit on, and here's for our audience. Here's a fun fact: Ruben is a blue belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, and so, but COVID has done you no favors in putting a little dent in your path with your black belt journey. So, what do you do to keep yourself healthy?
Well, first off, I'll look at that question of being a blue belt jiu-jitsu player, and I think that the idea behind that is the belts are not so important. I used to have an old instructor that said a white belt, that the actual physical object, the white belt, becomes a black belt with use. So because it becomes dirty the more times you use it, but a black belt becomes white with use. So that the more you use this, the more you train and things like that. There's really no end to it. With jiu-jitsu, you never stop learning, and belts are really just the signposts in the journey, and you don't really go on vacation for the signposts. But to your question of, well, what do I do to stay healthy? Well, I like to keep a plant-based diet. So it's really Dr. Shaw provided a fantastic presentation that focused on that. But also I like to exercise, and so when I can, I think the program always keeps me busy, but at least trying to have maybe 30 minutes of exercise a day. Hopefully later on in the day, I'll be able to get to that as well. But as you've said, the pandemic has done everyone few favors. So I think I exercise less now than I would have before it started.
Yeah, that's a lesson for all of us. And we are proud that you've decided to become vegetarian. We really are trying to spread the word ourselves. Jainism stands for that, and we hope the word gets out, and more people can see what Dr. Shah and what you are saying. One thing that was very interesting, that you have worked with healthcare technology companies, a very, very exciting area. Mm-hmm. Tell us about some cool innovations happening in healthcare technology and what gets you excited.
The one that really comes to mind is again, it kind of connects to my brother, but it's immunotherapies. And that's because after years of trying many different approaches, in many cases, my brother had been treated with steroids, which, in the late 90s, early aughts, was kind of used to treat Crohn's disease. My brother now takes an antibody-based treatment, which actually targets an inflammatory molecule. And since then, I've noticed that his health has definitely improved, and so he's gone from myself, my entire family, really being worried about his health in high school, to just recently he's celebrated the 1-year anniversary of his twin boys in December, and he was able to give speech as my best man at my wedding. And so if you had told me in as 9 or 10 that my brother, who was constantly in and out of the hospital, that he'd be able to have a very rich and full life, I don't know if I would have believed you. And so being able to see in a very personal way in my lifetime to someone very close to me, a medical innovation changing his life is amazing. And the immunotherapies has a lot of applications. I think where there's a lot of promise for it. And again, I say promise because a part of research and science is that there's everything has to be rigorously tested. There's a lot of potential, but really it has to be reviewed, and a lot of research has to be done before it's applied to care. But I think there's a lot of evidence around immunotherapies holding a lot of promise around cancer treatment. Again, much more research has to be done, but I think there's a lot of potential applications in that area. And again, this is as my own estimation of Ruben versus a spokesperson for the All of Us Research Program. But if you ask me as a person, that's where I really see a lot of potential.
That is so true. Now, coming back to All of Us Research Program, tell our audience here, why is diversity important in this biomedical research from a researcher's perspective, perhaps?
Yes, so one point here is that the All of Us Research Program is building a database to help transform the future of health research by equipping researchers nationwide with expansive health data from diverse populations. And that's because by engaging the participation of people in communities who have been left out of medical research in the past and making this data available to diverse researchers across a wide variety of settings, the program really seeks to improve understanding of health and disease and reduce health disparities. So if we're talking about precision medicine, the idea is that in the past, there have been many communities that have been left out of biomedical research. And what that means is the types of treatments and care that are created around these studies are specific to certain populations. So if you're looking at precision medicine, you need to involve communities, groups of people who have previously been underrepresented in biomedical research. So really, when it comes to diversity, it's really essential to providing treatment and care to the broadest number of people possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is Asian population, primarily South Asian on this call. Do you have any data, any numbers that you can share with us of the participation by this community?
Yes, and what's nice about the program is that a lot of aggregate information is provided the participants within the program, and it's available to members of the public if you have an internet access, which I think if you're listening to this call, you most likely do. You can go to researchallofus.org and you can look through a tool called Data Snapshots, which will actually provide an overall view of the participant population within the program currently. And right now, the program has over 460,000 participants that have enrolled. And more than 80% of those participants are underrepresented in biomedical research, and more than 50% self-identify as racial or ethnic minorities. So this makes the All of Us Research Program one of the largest and certainly one of the most diverse data research programs of its kind. And if you're interested in the kind of the number of, say, Asian participants or the number of participants who self-identify as Indian, that's also available in a tool called the Data Browser. So there's a number of health surveys that are available to participants. One of them is called the Basics, and it reviews a number of kind of introductory questions about participants, including demographic questions as well. And you can look through the data browser right now. I don't mind if people are are somewhat bored at what I'm saying, one of my goals is really to provide information about the program. So if you're interested right now, you can go to the data browser, which I think has been provided in the chat. And you can look through some of the questions that are available on the survey. If you do, you'll find that there are more than 10,000 participants who self-identify as Asian, and more than 2,800 who self-identify as Indian, which actually is a quarter of all participants self-reporting as Asian.
So that leads me to the question: those who are listening here and may not be the participants yet. What would you say to convince them to begin participating?
Well, what I'd say first is my goal is really not to convince people to participate. It's really to provide information. It's to encourage people to learn about the program and to really understand what the program is asking. It's a longitudinal health study, which means that it's going to ask certain questions and surveys over time, for in some cases for 10 years or more. And so if you are interested in the study, understand that it's not something that you would simply just fill out in a single survey or something like that, and then you can forget about it. Really, the program is interested in developing a long and rich relationship with participants over time. And really, some of the benefits of the program, if you're interested, many of these are potential. But it really has a lot of potential for future generations. So say your children or grandchildren, providing kind of biomedical information that researchers might use to be able to create different findings about improvements for care that can influence generations to come. And then it also ensures that communities are included in research that may have been excluded in the past, that can really lead to more understandings of precise treatments.
Yeah, so just like what Jain Society is doing, building a large temple to secure the future of future generations, making sure they have, our children, grandchildren have home. Similarly, all of us is doing a longitudinal study so that the research and the policy decisions can be made that will benefit perhaps the future generations. If not our generation, maybe we will benefit from that as well. But this is great. As I said, I've been a member, long-time participant. Those who are not participants yet, it is very easy. There is a mobile app that is very simple to enroll in. You take surveys. It doesn't take a lot of time, and the whole process is just remarkably simple. So I encourage, if you're not a member yet, please consider joining. Again, it does not take a whole lot of time on your behalf. And Ruben, it was really a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a little better over time here. We are truly thankful to you for joining us here, and the links are being posted. Those of you who are still around, please stick around. We would like to take a picture and capture this happy smiles with happy hearts, and reserve this, document this memory from today. I would like to close this event with a few words of thanks for people who have made this event possible. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of us for the partnership, all of us team members, Hank Yuan, Rima Matsumoto, Samantha Santoro, and our primary liaison, Wendy Bhagat. Thank you very much for your partnership. I'd like to thank our technology director, Manish Shah, for helping us prepare and always be there in the background to run the show smoothly. Thanks to our events and communications team with JSMW, Shwetal Bhai Shah, Begaji Doshi, Shilpaji Shah, Belaji, and Gautam Bhai Shah. I would like to extend also my thanks to all of us program supporter, Pawan Zaveri. Dr. Zaveri has been a longtime member and supporter of the program. and the man who worked the hardest in arranging this event, Pulkit Gangwal, our former Director of Publications. Thank you so much, Pulkit. And last but not the least, I again thank Dr. Neil Shah, Dr. Rubin Basker for your amazing presence and sharing of knowledge here. So if those who are around, please, if you don't mind, turn on your cameras for just a quick minute. We would love to capture this memory. I hope people found this event useful. We would love to continue to do these events and share knowledge with the society. All right, I will say cheese or samosas for the last time, and we'll capture the picture here. Manan bhai, if you don't mind. All right, people are coming on cameras slowly.
Okay. Took it. Unless if more people are joining. There we go. Okay, hold on. Got a couple of people join. We got it.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you so much again. We really appreciate your participation. And again, thank you to our speakers, Dr. Basker and Dr. Shah. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Jai Jinendra, everyone.